how many times this season do we figure this Sceptres fan base is going to utter the words, well, at least we got a point out of it? And honestly, this game, that's kind of true. We were not the better team on the ice. Sceptres lose 3-2 in overtime to the Minnesota Frost. And I wanna point something out. I think when the ref you suck chants start coming out, I'm not really gonna necessarily blame the officials for this game, but that's not a good sign. I think it was about 8 minutes in, the Scepters were in their own zone starting a breakout. Zanin was leading the rush, and there were 6 Frost players on the ice. For like a while. Like, it's one thing if players are changing onto the bench and on and off, and there's a whole bunch of players right at the boards and they're all lined up. That happens all the time. No, there were 6 players involved in the play on the ice for at least 10 seconds. Like, it was a long time. And obviously, that rush was never able to really come to any fruition for Toronto because there was an extra player that Zanin wasn't able to run through. Obviously, that's an egregious error and missed call on the refs, and especially the fact that the entire arena was shouting that they had too many players in itself is bad enough. The same thing happened last game. Like, almost identically against Montreal. Montreal had 6 players on the ice. Nothing was done about that. Troy Ryan was irate, and you can't blame him. 10 minutes in to the first period, Taylor Heisey gets the puck into the zone, works a pass past Monroe, past Flanagan, gets it into Shisheva, works it around Flanagan, and puts it through Kirk's 5-hole for an early 1-0 lead. Not great. At that point, Toronto was actually out shooting Minnesota, which I was frankly surprised about. It didn't feel like it. Like, Toronto felt like they were on the back foot this whole game, especially in that first period. I think a lot of those shots were long that they had, but like, it felt like they were hemmed in for so much of that first period. One thing I've been critical of that's been abundantly clear the past few games is that Toronto will just lay down once they, get a goal scored on them. And to their credit, they didn't do that this game. They had a really good chance, like less than 30 seconds after that goal was scored in them, a really good 2-on-1 that Rooney was able to keep out. Right, it's nice to see that they're trying to keep themselves up. It would take until the 18-minute mark. Renata Fast takes a shot. Rooney makes a good save. Fast follows up with her own rebound. Makes an insane save, Rooney. Like, kind of turned around. She got bumped a bit by Watts and Van Wieren and one of Minnesota's players out front there. Reached back with the paddle to keep it out, but that puck wound up bouncing right over to Emma Woods, who's able to put it in the more or less empty net. And Burford, Ontario's own, ties the game up with her first goal of the season. That's great to see. 1-1 going into the first period. It's a new game now. Came out the gate a little slow, sure. A bit of hype, a late goal to, get spirits up in the locker room going into the intermission. Looking good. Only 8 minutes into the second, funky little play happens. Toronto has a bit of pressure. Flanagan winds up trying to throw it around or out front. It gets on top of the net. Bounces back down from on top of the net. Rooney doesn't know where the puck is, and by the time she does, it's already falling down, and Watts baseball bats it out of midair and kind of bounces in off Rooney's back for a 2-1 lead. This is another fluky goal, and I feel like I've said that a lot over the past few games for Toronto. They get a lot of funky ones. Like, ones that are hard to repeat, ones that are not necessarily due to any systems or plays that they have in place. It's kind of just like stuff that winds up working out for them. The bounces are going their way. And, I mean, you take them, for sure. Right? And Watts loves banking it off the goalie. She's done that a bunch of times. But second period, Toronto would get a 2-1 lead, and they'd carry that into the intermission. Third period, 3.5 minutes in, during a little scrum for the puck in the corner, Clara Van Wieren winds up taking a boarding call and sends Minnesota to the power play. Not great for Toronto. They gave Taylor Heisey so much time and space. I know they're on the penalty kill. I know Heisey had the puck for so long. And she just walked right in. She was able to move up like 5 or 10 feet before just blowing one past Kirk. That seems like one, like, maybe from Kirk, yeah, you might like a save, but also, ladies, what are we doing? What are we doing? Flanagan, step up. Get in the way. Move your stick. Try to poke the puck. Do literally anything. How do you let Taylor Heisey just basically do whatever she wants? Ties it up 2-2 for Minnesota, and it would stay that way until the end of the period, and we go to overtime. The first few minutes of play seemed pretty decent for Toronto. It seemed like they were dictating the play. They had the control. Daryl Watts steps in, takes a really nice shot. Rooney stops it but can't hold it. So Fast at the side of the net is looking to bat in the loose puck that's sitting in the blue paint. And her stick gets shattered. The Minnesota player storms in, slashes her stick in half. You can see it, it's in 2 pieces, and there's no call on that one. And, like, if it had just fallen out of her hand, if she just slashed it out of her grip, I can understand, maybe that's shaky because sometimes it's a bit loose or whatever. I've seen that happen. The stick is in 2 pieces. No call on that. Like 30 seconds later, maybe less, Fast actually takes a tripping penalty. Fast reached her stick to the player's legs. She fell over. Penalized. It makes perfect sense. I don't have a problem with that call. Like, that's the thing this game. I don't have really any issue with any of the penalties that were taken, any of the calls that were made. I more so have an issue with, consequently, than the ones that weren't. There were a lot of plays Minnesota made that were as bad or worse as some of the ones that Toronto did, and Toronto got 2 minutes and Minnesota didn't. This is always the issue with officiating, is the consistency. I like to give officials, generally speaking, the benefit of the doubt. It's a very hard job. It's a fast game. Human error exists. I understand. But there were some bad ones. Slash stick in 2 pieces, that's a slashing call. 6 players on the ice for like 10-20 seconds, that's too many players. But either way, Minnesota winds up with the power play on Fast Slash. They're on the power play for like 30 seconds, maybe. Heisey just gets it to Panic, who's sitting back door. Got in behind Turnbull. Gets it past Kirk. And that's the game yet again. Toronto loses in overtime once again. Like, again, was this their best game? No, not at all. Was it their worst game? Not really. You're allowed to lose. What really hurts is now Toronto only has 10 games left. Some teams have 14. Toronto doesn't play for another week. It's going to give a lot of those teams that have way less games time to catch up a little bit. I think Boston's got 2 games in that time. Seattle's got 2 games in that time. The standings will become a bit more of an even keel of where every team actually is. When this is always the worry. Toronto is in 6th place right now, and they've played more games than anybody. A regulation win today, a 3-point win, would have popped them up into a playoff spot. That's not the case now. Seattle has 4 games in hand. They're only 5 points back, I believe. Not even 2 regulation wins. Seattle can jump over them. Vancouver can jump over them. Ottawa can get out of reach. New York can get out of reach. Like, if they don't clean up their act, they are taking the express train to the first overall draft pick. I wanna make it clear, because I've been thinking about this for the past couple of games. If the team just was in a rough spot, it would be a bit more understandable, I guess. I could see how some of the things that are happening would happen. We've seen the potential of the team. The first couple of games, their home opener against Boston, yes, they lost 2-1, but they had like 46 shots. And were they the highest quality of shots, every single one of them? No, not really. But a lot of them were really good. You know, maybe out of 46 shots, 30 of them, 25 of them were high danger. That's still a good number, especially when they're not even cracking 25 shots overall. Now, like, back when, at the beginning of the season, when I was watching those games, the Boston game, the Ottawa game that followed up, that was much the same story. It was, the potential is here. This has the workings of a great team, of a great season. You just gotta tweak some stuff, fine-tune some things, tighten up a little bit, and you're laughing. It's gonna be great. And they've fallen so far. That's what's baffling. That's what's frustrating about cheering for the team right now, is that we know how good they can be. We know the potential they're able to have. We've seen the pressure they've put on teams. We've seen, the absolute stranglehold they've had in the offensive zone sometimes over games. And it's fallen off an absolute cliff. I can't even say since the Olympic break, because it was long before that. And I don't know why. They haven't made any trades. They haven't made any coaching changes. They had an injury or two here or there. Yeah, but that shouldn't change this. It is egregious. It's such a is it morale? Is it just the fact that they played those really good games, they didn't go the way they wanted them to, and now all of a sudden they can't put that back together? I just want to understand. What happened? What happened to the team? What happened in that locker room? It's so strange. It's so strange. I just want them to get back to the potential that myself and every other fan knows they have. Toronto consistently sells out their arena. Roughly 8,600-ish people. A little higher than that. Regularly. People pay good cash to see these games, and they can't hang on to a win. They can't get a regulation win at home. I just am not seeing a clear-cut reason for why that's the case. I think it's just morale. I think it's just mental. I think it's a head game. They have a week to practice, to have any team meetings they feel necessary, and get their act together. And I hope to God that they use it. I don't want to see them come back next Sunday against Seattle and put out the same mediocre, middle-of-the-road performance that they did today. We know they're better. They just need to actually play like it. That is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want more. They got a lot of ground to make up.